Welcome to San Joaquin Spotlight, a public affairs program featuring conversations about life in the central San Joaquin Valley. This program is brought to you in partnership between KFSR 90.7 FM and CMAC Fresno. I'm your host, Sevag Tateosian. Today in the studio, we have someone that's been in the Fresno community for a very long time, and she's actually been in the news for a very long time. I remember watching her as I was growing up, when I came home from work or when I came home from school. Our guest is Faith Sidlow. Welcome to the program.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So my introduction to you was that I watched you for a long time,
Right.
and you've been on the news for a long time. Is that common? I mean, when you're out and about, do people say, hey, I've watched you for a long time?
The funny thing is when I'm out and about, people think that I was their kindergarten teacher, right? Yeah, they know that they know me somehow, but they can't quite put their finger on it.
Do you give them hints, or do you sit there and say?
Oh, no, I have not given people hints before, but I think it's a lot easier just to say, all right, yes, I did work in local TV news.
So people watching this are going to watch this and say, wait a minute, where do I know her from? Which station and what times were you on?
I worked for KC24 for 28 years. I started out as their weekend reporter and weekday producer, and I was a consumer reporter during the week on the evening news. And then in 1995, I began doing the weather. I did that for 4 years from 5 a.m. to 7 a.m. And then in 2000, I began anchoring the morning news, and I did that until 2013.
Well, and now you're at Fresno State. So talk a little bit about what you're doing at Fresno State.
At Fresno State, I am an assistant professor in the Department of Mass Communication and Journalism, and now I teach people how to do the news.
You know, in this whole area of media, news, where does writing come in, and how important is writing?
Very important. It's the foundation of everything that we do. Some people think that we may just talk and it just comes off the top of our head, and it's not really true. We have to not only be a good writer, but also be really familiar with current events and be able to research and be discriminating and objective and be able to tell a story too. It's not just writing, it's telling a story.
Are there times where something comes across your desk and you need more information on it, so you do your own research, or how does that process work?
Yeah, we do our own research in local news, especially. If you're working for the network, which I did before I came into local news, I was a researcher. So I would prepare packets and give it to the correspondents. But in local news, you do all of your own research. And what's interesting was before the internet, back in the early 80s and early 90s, we didn't really have much to rely on. We relied on our sources, and if we really needed some information, we would go to the library to get background, or look at the newspaper, but we didn't have the resources that we have now.
You know, you're going a direction that I wanted to go in later on, but let's go now because you went there, and thank you for that. Technology, how has it changed this industry? Because the reason I ask is you're in a unique situation. So you started when internet wasn't involved in this area. So how has that changed the industry?
Yeah, just to put it into perspective, I started on a manual typewriter when I was doing radio news. And then at Channel 24, I had an electric typewriter. And as we got into the mid to late 90s, we went to computers. It changed everything, just having the computer, not the internet, because we were able to change our story immediately rather than blocking everything out with a dark pen or pencil. And the teleprompter went straight to the camera rather than having to tape together the sheets of paper to scroll them through the teleprompter. So that's just a minor change. But now the internet has made everybody, and mobile phones too, has made everybody a reporter. People are producing their own news everywhere, not just at CMAC. I mean, some people are doing it in their bedroom or their garage. So there are many more voices, but on television, especially local television news, there are fewer voices because there's been a lot of consolidation.
In this show here, we have volunteers that run cameras. Right now they're in the studio. I mean, we couldn't do it without volunteers, and people don't realize how much work even this simple show is.
Right.
And you know, we show only once every week. How many people, or I should rephrase the question, what made up the newscast during the time you were there? Because I imagine there were a lot of people.
Well, and again, it changed. In the beginning, there were more people, and then as we started to rely on computers more, there were fewer people. And then as stations began to consolidate, there were even fewer people. So for a newscast, just very similar to what you're doing here, I mean, you have 3 cameras. There's no one behind any of the cameras, right?
Yeah.
And normally we would have had 3 camera operators. Well, then it was narrowed down to 2 camera operators. And then we had the teleprompter operator who also ran all of the cameras. A lot of stations don't have operators at all. They have robotic cameras.
Wow.
In the past, we had somebody who was a director and somebody else who was a TD and someone else who was doing graphics. And now that position can be combined into all 3.
Interesting. So, and do you anticipate that changes will continue in the future?
I don't see how it can't change. There are so many things that are happening right now as we speak. I mean, we've been talking about, we haven't talked about it, but the auction, the Spectrum auction, which is going to be happening here in 2016. So there are going to be a lot of TV stations that are going to be giving up their licenses and giving up their spectrum to go to the wireless companies. Everything's moving to that mobile technology. So I see it heading that direction, but no one really knows where it's going to end because it has changed so quickly.
What got you in this industry? I mean, you know, there's a lot of people who, as a child, they knew they were going to be newscasters, or as a child, they knew they were going to be in front of the camera. And then some people just accidentally went that route. For you, what got you involved in it?
Well, as a child, I actually was really into interviewing.
Wow.
And I don't remember this at all, but my cousin told me that I would walk around with a tape recorder and interview people. I didn't remember. I went to San Diego State, and I went in as a business major. And after the first semester, I realized that that was not for me. And I started to really, you know, think about what it was that I enjoyed doing and what I was passionate about, and that was writing. And I found my way to the campus radio station and also to public broadcasting, to KPBS in San Diego, where I volunteered for a few months, and then I got a job and as a board operator, and then as a reporter and as a fill-in anchor. So one thing led to another, and then the next thing I knew, I was the San Diego reporter for KNX News Radio in Los Angeles. And when I graduated, I got my first job here in Fresno.
Talk a little bit about the students now. You teach at Fresno State, great school. I went there just But talk a little bit about the students. Now, 2 questions. One, do they recognize you?
Well, you know, a lot of them were, well, most of them are in their 20s, early 20s, and they may not know who I am, but their parents do, if they're local students. And we have a lot of students from out of town. I think that to them, I'm just me, which is the way it should be. And I think that my job may give me a little bit more leverage as far as having them realize that, you know, I do know what I'm talking about. But I don't think that they're starstruck in any way. I'm just me. That's just really the way it is.
Has your past career in television and media helped you in your current role, and how?
Well, because what I did in my past role is what I'm doing in my current role. Instead of being a reporter and a news anchor, now I'm just an executive producer or a news director. So my students put on a half-hour weekly newscast, and they produce all of their stories. They go out and shoot the stories, they write them, they edit them, and then they do the newscast where they're running camera and TDing and the technical director, and they are directing the show or running the audio board or floor directing. They're doing all of these things. If I didn't have the experience that I had from my past job, it would be difficult to do my current job.
Are there still a lot of students that want to get involved in this field? I mean, you know, is this field still very interesting to a lot of students?
I have not seen a decline in the numbers. The numbers have held steady, not only for broadcast, but for newspapers too. And that people wonder, well, gosh, you know, the newspaper is so thin now. It's not the medium, it's the message, right? So it is what we are learning to write about, and it doesn't matter if we are presenting that message on television, on radio, in a newspaper, on a cell phone, a podcast, or whatever it is, you still have to know how to write objectively, although that's changing a little bit in local markets too, and you know, how to discern what is true from what is not true and what's important for your viewers or listeners to find out about too. You know, we still do quite a bit of gatekeeping as journalists, although we don't have as much of a diverse voice now because we've had this consolidation.
Talk a little bit about KFSR. You know, this is airing on KFSR as we speak. Talk a little bit about your role at KFSR.
My role is twofold. As a faculty member at Fresno State, we're involved with the radio station, and it's our hope that we will be able to involve students even more than they're already involved. Right now, they do internships with the station, they do some production with the station, and my hope is that there is going to be more coming up in the near future. And then I'm also the chair of KFSR's advisory committee.
How important is the involvement in KFSR? I mean, you know, I've been involved in KFSR for a long time, and I learned a lot. And, you know, media is not my career, but I learned so much, and I learned so much at KFSR. How important is the students' involvement in something like KFSR?
Oh, it's really important for so many reasons. I mean, KFSR itself is important because it is the voice of the community in some ways, and there is this local music venue that we're able to provide having KFSR there. And it gives students an opportunity to see how local radio operates.
Now let's talk about the fundraiser coming up, because there is a fundraiser, and rumor is it's at President Castro's house.
Yes, it's not a rumor, it is a fact. It's on June 27th. It starts at 11 o'clock in the morning and it runs until 5. It's called KFSR Fest. And it's basically kind of like a day on the green. You may not know what that is, but it's, you know, bring your lawn chair and come and just enjoy the music. It's going to start with some Latin jazz from Roomba 32, and then we'll have AC Miles doing jazz and blues, and then sound of Sea of Sound, and they're going to be doing eclectic music, and that's in the evening, ending at 5 o'clock in the evening. And then there's a picnic lunch, too. It's going to involve the Bulldog, which is the gourmet hot dogs that are actually produced by the meat science students, and they are supposed to be delicious. I haven't had an opportunity to have one yet, but they are big and they are good. And it goes with chips and cookies, and then we'll be selling water and beer too. Okay. And all of the proceeds from this event go to KFSR because we do only get money from pledges and from donations. That's how we survive, so it's important.
I want to continue on that topic because a lot of people I run into tell me, well, KFSR gets money from the schools, so why are they doing fundraising? Or KFSR must have this huge budget because Fresno State has a huge budget. And I correct them. So talk a little bit about...
Yeah, no, it's not a huge budget. We're dependent on whatever it is that we fundraise.
So talk a little bit more about the cost to this thing. I mean, you know, how can people get tickets?
Yeah, $25 if you buy your tickets in advance. And you can go to livemusiccity.com. There's actually no service fee. It's going to look a little weird when you go and click onto the website because it will be something like $23.74 or whatever. But it's $25 and you don't pay a service fee, and those are tickets in advance. You can also buy tickets at the door for $30. And this is for 3 bands all day long and the picnic lunch. And it's just really a great time to kind of hang out and chill and have some fun and visit with people. I'm really excited about it because this is something that KFSR did about 10 years ago. Oh. So this is the 10-year anniversary of the last time we had 3 bands that were playing for a fundraiser for Fresno State.
It sounds like a fun time. It sounds like a great way to give back to the radio station of Fresno, or actually Fresno community. So people don't realize that it's actually powerful. I was listening over the weekend, and I was traveling up the Aubrey-Prather Way, and I heard it fine. So it was very interesting. The signal is very powerful.
Yes, it is, and the quality of the sound. It's, you know, you have that great FM music sound. It's just enjoyable to listen to. You don't have the commercials that you have with commercial radio, and the people who are on the air are very knowledgeable in the music that they're presenting.
You know, earlier when we were just practicing and talking to each other, there was a group of kids that came into the studio, and one of them said that he wanted to be a director, and you know, we smiled and laughed with them. But when you run into kids, or when there's kids out there that say, I want to do that, what advice would you give them?
Well, one of the things I would tell them to do is come to CMAC, because the opportunities here are endless. For just $25 a year if you're a student, you can learn how to run camera and how to direct and be a technical director and do interviews as you're doing right now, and run a live truck for that matter. So the possibilities are endless, and there are a lot of things that they can learn. So I do send them here. In fact, I think one of my students is here as a volunteer right now. So it's a great opportunity. The other thing that I tell them to do is, if they are in high school right now, get involved with their student productions. A lot of the high schools do have some form of media, whether it's newspaper, or they do have broadcast shows at a lot of the different schools. Get involved with that.
Tell us about the classes you teach at Fresno State. So I know we were talking off air, and you said one of the things you teach is like a writing course, but what else can we expect Faith Sidlow to teach us at Fresno State?
I teach broadcast news writing. I teach broadcast performance, and I also, the capstone experience for students in the broadcast option in our department is a class that is called Broadcast Reporting and Production, and that's where they put everything they've learned together, not only from broadcast but from print, and all of the other courses that they've taken in the Mass Communication and Journalism department, and they produce this half-hour show.
Did you know you were going to end up in Fresno? I mean, I'm going to take you back to when you first got involved at San Diego State. Did you know eventually you're going to come here, or it was just chance?
No, I had no clue. Just before I graduated from San Diego State, I went to a conference, and it was, at the time it was called the Radio and Television News Directors Association. And I met the news director from KC24 at this conference. And we struck up a conversation, and he was interested in what I had done in the past. And he told me to submit an application, and I did, and I got the job here in Fresno. And I came for 2 years. That was my plan. I was going to be here for 2 years. And, you know, one thing leads to another, and all of a sudden you have a family, and you have established roots, and it's difficult to leave. So I've been here 30 years instead, and this is my home.
Any courses that you would suggest potential people who come into this field take? I mean, let's say right now there's a high school student listening, or even a college student listening, who says they want to do this. I mean, other than the mass communication and journalism, is there anything else that you would recommend that they take?
Well, I think that they need to have a strong liberal arts background, right? Liberal arts and sciences, and definitely write. Right. And if they can improve their grammar and their sentence structure, and learn a lot about their own community and world events too. So many kids right now don't know what goes on outside the United States, if they even know what's going on inside the United States, and it's really important to pay attention to world news. So I would say take some classes that are political science classes and history classes, economics, and learn how to write.
Some people may think that they can't do this for whatever reason. You know, they watch newscasts and they dream to be newscasters, but they think they can't do this. What do you say to them?
Well, I think that you have to be passionate, right? If you're not passionate about it, you can't do it. But if you have that passion and you have that desire to succeed at this, anybody can do it.
So let's talk some more about the fundraiser coming up for KFSR. President's House, what can people expect? So I'm on the fence. I don't know if I'm going to go. I may not want to go.
You're breaking my heart.
So why should I attend?
Yeah, well, for one thing, you want to, I'm hoping, support Fresno State students, right? And support one of the only local radio stations, local radio stations in Fresno. And support local music, too. A lot of the local artists, the only place you can hear them is on KFSR. But besides that, where else can you go and hang out at President Castro's house, the University House, and listen to some fantastic music and be with your friends, have a great meal, and support Fresno State at the same time.
Now that you're on the advisory board of KFSR, you're learning more about the station. Are you surprised? I mean, are you impressed? What are you feeling about it?
Well, I'm not surprised because I started listening to KFSR when I moved to Fresno. And I am a blues fan and a jazz fan. And there's no other way to get that music on the radio. I mean, I can put my CDs in, but that's it, right? I can't get it on any other station. So this is the station that I tune to for eclectic music, for blues, for jazz, and especially when I've had a long day and I want to hear some great music, or on the weekends some great music, and there's no other place to go.
So let's refresh the audience's memory. Talk about you said something about the hot dogs that I didn't realize.
Yeah.
They're made at Fresno State.
Yeah, the meat science department makes these hot dogs. We call them the bulldogs, right? The bulldog hot dog. They're gourmet hot dogs. And this is what will be included in the price of that ticket at the KFSR Fest. $25 to get in for 3 different groups: jazz, blues, and eclectic, and also includes this picnic lunch with the bulldog and chips and a cookie, and delicious cookies, by the way. And you can buy wine or beer. I'm sorry, I think it's just water and beer, no wine, and it's going to be a blast.
The way I'm thinking about the event is that it's going to be a picnic type of atmosphere, live music, food. I mean, could I bring a blanket and sit on the floor?
Oh, absolutely. We encourage people to bring blankets or low beach chairs, right? You can't bring umbrellas. You can't bring, those big tents or whatever. But there will be some tents there for shade, and there will be shade in different areas. I mean, it is going to be June 27th after all, so we do know it's going to be warm, but we're going to make it as cool and comfortable as possible. We're
hoping that during that weekend it's a cool streak in Fresno, because
it
it happens, Talk a little bit about you some more now. So, I mean, how has Fresno, when you came to Fresno first till today, how has Fresno treated you? I mean, when you go to the store or when you go somewhere, and especially when you were on TV, was the community very friendly to you?
Oh my goodness, they were so welcoming. Yeah, I mean, this is definitely my home, and that's the way I have been made to feel.
Talk a little bit about Fresno State now, a little bit. Other than KFSR, so you teach there, I mean, what can students expect when they take your class?
Well, before they take my class, they're going to be taking some other journalism classes. The first thing that they have to do is they have to pass our entrance exam, which is a grammar, spelling, and punctuation test, which, if you were in our department, what department were you in?
I was a criminology major, so this is not, I mean, I stumbled on to mass communication and journalism, but I have never taken a class in it. But in criminology, I knew that writing was important. And so that's why I emphasize it, and I love to write. Well,
the first thing that they have to do is a lot of their lower division
GE classes.
Their GE classes, yeah. And they have to take our entrance exam, which is the department qualification exam, and they have to pass that with a 70% or better. And then they have to take a beginning media writing class. So they learn how to write for print, and they learn how to edit themselves. And from there, they take a reporting class, and then I get a hold of them. And they'll learn how to write for radio and learn how to write for television. They'll learn how to put together radio packages that we call wraps, and they'll learn how to put together television news packages. They'll learn how to talk properly, speak properly, proper diction and enunciation and pitch and delivery, and for both radio and for television, and then they'll learn how to be a reporter.
And we're running out of time in the program, but is there a difference between someone who writes, let's say, poems or stories, and someone who writes for TV and radio? I mean, are there different types of writing?
Absolutely. There is a difference between poetry and composition writing, too. We, as broadcasters, we write much shorter sentences. We like to say that we write for the ear. We write conversationally, whereas if you're writing a composition story, or if you're writing for poetry, you're writing for, well, poetry, the eye and the ear, but for composition, you're writing for the eye, right? So that you can read it easily.
One last time, tell us about the fundraiser coming up for KFSR, what can people expect, and where to get tickets.
Okay, so once again, you can get tickets from livemusiccity.com. Tickets are $25. The KFSR Fest is going to be on June 27th. It starts at 11 and runs until 5 p.m. There will be 3 bands. Roomba 32 starts everything off, and then we have AC Miles Blues Band, and then the Sea of Sound, the eclectic band, wraps things up and runs until 5 o'clock. It all comes with a picnic lunch, a bulldog hot dog, a gourmet hot dog, and chips and a cookie. You can buy beer and water there, and there should be some other snacks and other food items that can be purchased too.
Sounds like a fun picnic on the 27th of June.
Yeah. Hope you can make it. Are you going to go?
I am going to go, actually.
Thank you.
I am going to go.
That's
I'll be
good.
there.
Excellent. You're going to love it.
I think I'm going to have a blast.
Yeah.
That's all for this edition of San Joaquin Spotlight. To the volunteer crew that make this production and every production possible, thank you. We couldn't do this show without you. To our audience members listening to us on KFSR 90.7 FM, thank you. And thank you as well to those watching this broadcast on CMAC, Comcast 93, AT&T 99. To our guest, Faith Sidlow, thank you for coming. I am a fan. I watched you when I was growing up, and I would come home and we would watch the broadcast with you on it.
Well, thanks so much. It's been a pleasure.
Tune in next week to a new edition of the program.
Say you love